Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to Biblio Fitness. Hope everyone's had a great day thus far. So today, I just finished the second chapter of Beyond Good and Evil, talking about the convictions of philosophy and the false conclusions made by philosophers over the centuries, based on the false conclusion or the false presupposition that you could find the truth outside of our biases, prejudices, and cultural and provincial norms, as Nietzsche likes to say. And I feel like he really is building up, because this is about the free spirit, really. So I finished the free spirit, not a criticism of philosophy, but how it transfers over to how the free spirit thinks. Once you get away from the moral valuations that have made the world and the ideology that we all live in, and I spoke about it briefly even when I was making the comparison to the Matrix. It's quite interesting. It's very harrowing. It's a monumental task that you have to place upon yourself in order to be this free spirit that Nietzsche is calling for. He is speaking to an audience in the future. He's asking, would you be the new philosopher once you get past all these conceptions of good and evil and conceptions of right and wrong and truth, and even changing the definition and changing your relationship with truth is an essential part of your evolution into a free spirit. So I'm really glad that I'm getting into Nietzsche. It's work. But I consider it to be it's an enjoyable task to be able to force yourself to kind of understand what's going on here, and then to apply it later, to really start questioning yourself and questioning what you believe in, and really starting to develop a really bad taste in your mouth about the world around you. That's why I've really always been with I've always felt a kinship to Nietzsche, because I've said this before, I've always felt like there's something inherently wrong with the way that we look at things. I've always felt like, why are we always talking about good and evil? It seems that these are just mere words. These are just mere banners. This is just verbosity, you know what I'm saying? There's no validity behind that, any dumbass can be in the right, really. Any dumbass can find justification for their arguments anywhere on the internet. And I feel like that's the point that is being driven by Nietzsche, is relativity. And it's all a matter of perspective, and the way that he talks about it from an artist's perspective, I guess that's how he puts it, is that these are not antithetical values in terms of right and wrong and good and evil and things, but different shades, different perspectives, different valuations, different, it's all relativity. It's all someone's conviction, a person's innate idea that makes it to be an over-encompassing idea. A truth that I found within myself. Move this camera. I'm so sorry, guys. You're okay. But yeah, because he talks about the will to power, right? And that's the basic argument made by Nietzsche, is that this is all the will to power. And you can kind of see it, and I'm starting to begin to see it, how it forms into the pathos in which most philosophers fall upon, right? Or most of them tread upon, is that they find an innate conviction, an innate drive, instinct, whatever you want to call it, and they run with it. And then they find reasons in order to substantiate that claim. And their own truth become the truth for everybody else. And so when you look at that, you see that it is a will to power. It is a will to show that you are smarter than everybody else, that you somehow have the secret, the secret behavior, whatever the case may be, the instinct or the inspiration to really find a truth that defines reality. And it's all narcissism, it's all ego. It's a selfish desire, it's an instinct. You can't separate yourself from instinct. That's why Nietzsche always makes the argument that you can't live truly altruistically. You can't really live for the purpose of others. You can't because even the people that say that, they do it for their own selfish reasons, right? Like how many times have people said, "I do the good for others because I feel good myself." So you're doing it for your own selfish desires. You're just tricking yourself. You're putting a mask in order to excuse your behavior, in order to conform to the reigning ideology of the herd morality, as or the gregarious morality. Um, because you're not doing it to help someone else. You're doing it because it makes you feel good. So it's a seduction, really. And and these will to truths or will to self-deception. And it's just very interesting. Like it's very difficult to get away from that because you have to eliminate convictions. And the only way to eliminate convictions is to scrutinize them and analyze them and really start questioning yourself on whether the convictions you have yourself are your own or something that has been imposed upon you. So it really does require a lot of searching and a lot of like how he you could tell that Nietzsche loves his Greek mythology because he's always throwing in metaphors in terms of that and from that perspective as well. He talks about a man like someone that wants to go on this journey is going through a labyrinth beyond saving. No, beyond you're going to the consciousness beyond most people's understanding, beyond people's pity. They won't know why you're suffering. They won't care because they don't even know what the hell you're talking about. You know what I'm saying? Like because you're gonna be looking at things from on high, and once you get yourself away from morality and away from the ideology, you're gonna be seen as a villain. You're gonna be seen as evil. You know what I'm saying? Because that's all it's been. And I really do like how he continuously references nature, right? This is our innate nature in terms of hierarchy, and he says how the great things are meant for the great, and the abysses are meant for the profound, and the rarities of the world are meant for the rare of us. He believes in a hierarchy, not with the modern ideas of love and compassion and kindness and stuff like that, espoused by people like Lex Friedman, like Jordan Peterson. He's very conflictive. A lot of his arguments, as I begin to read more of Nietzsche, doesn't begin to make starts lacking the sense. I'm probably gonna unfollow him because he's not making any sense nowadays. To be honest with you, really, it's just not really making a whole lot of sense anymore. Um, and it's just it's very comical and it's a very interesting way how he's looked at it. Away from this gregarious morality, this equality for all, this escape from suffering. This is the promises that is espoused all the time, right? You can see it in Christianity, for example, that tells you to be nihilistic because all the values contained within the world are completely obsolete and they're not important. The only thing that's important is the world outside of this one. So, you know, the next chapter is going to be on Christianity, which is the religious nature, so that's going to be really fun. But I could begin to really see the world differently. And the reason that I said earlier that I'm really starting to look at the world with complete disgust is that I really started to see how easily susceptible we are to the prevailing morality and how morality changes and how it's constantly evolving, right? What we consider to be good, what we consider to be bad, what we consider to be immoral or moral is continuously changing. Our values change, but then we always, like, we know this happens, but we pretend and we feign that it never does. That these same words have had the same definition and the same outline consequences. It's not how it works. You know what I'm saying? Like, we used to think slavery was good. Now we villainize slavery for good reason. But at the very, very deep level, it's all still fucking subjective. That's why I've never been a fan of people villainizing men that are dead, men that are in coffins. Like, I've never been a fan of that. I think it's stupid. Like, this whole reparations thing, for example. Like, none of us own slaves. Like, we're gonna be guilty of the crimes enacted by our forefathers. Then we're all gonna be in jail. Right? We're all gonna be in jail. At the end of the day, at the end of the day, you have to realize, and I feel like this is the most important thing that Nietzsche has really driven home, is that this is all fucking relative. And like I've said before, every country has a casus belli. You know, it's not only Rome. It's, we're not like every country seeks justification for open acts of aggression. You just can't put it as an open act of aggression. You know, you have to put a fucking excuse. You have to warp it in a way that justifies your actions. And you look at that in history. You look at these false flags and bullshit attempts to start a war, and you just start to see how shallow these concepts are. You know, if you look at it objectively, and I feel like most people can see that, but they don't want to accept it. Because these are noble lies that most of us need in place in order to make the world make sense, in order to find a reason to keep living. And that's why, you know, many people consider Christianity or religion to be the opiate of the masses, right? It's like, you know, when things are going rough, when things are going bad in your life, you suddenly find God, you suddenly find Jesus, you suddenly start going to church because you're finding a way to like numb the feeling of pain and suffering in the ecstasy and the orgy of the masses, you know, the elation and the deferment responsibility onto a deity, you know what I'm saying? It becomes a coping mechanism. And it just shows you the degenerative nature of Christianity, that people don't even look at it anymore for the truth, like, oh, this is how the world is, but as a coping mechanism, like you're a drug addict. And that's what we do with these ideologies, right? We believe in these things and we know them to be false, which is doublethink. You know, you could tell George Orwell we're at his Nietzsche. This is really doublethink, that we know these things to be false, but we continue to believe in them as true because that's the only way we find suffering. That's the only way we can cope through the suffering. There has to be a purpose. There has to be a will. There has to be a truth that we all are striving towards. And even after all the attempts throughout the entire course of human history, nothing's really changed. The strong have control over the weak. We, like, you know, the only reason that anything, like, the only thing that's different is nothing's out in the open, you know. Like, I'm really glad that I started reading history before this, like, way more before I got back onto Nietzsche, because I look at history and it's always that same way. And that's why, like, from a very early age, because I was always into history, I started realizing that world is relativism. There is no absolute truth, because everyone makes a claim to the absolute truth. And if everyone can make a claim to the absolute truth, it loses its value, because it's not secret. It's based off our instincts. It's based off our own preconceptions. And it feels good to escape from that. It does, but there is, like, I feel like that transition that still needs to be made personally to the people that are on this journey. Not to be a pessimist, because that's what happened to me, and it's very easy to be susceptible to that sort of mentality once you make that realization, right? Like, that's what Nietzsche is scared of, that people are going to turn to nihilism. But he wants to say yes to life, you know, to find different values, to go beyond morality, to go beyond what we consider to be okay or just or whatever. You know, that's why he says psychologists are restricted in their studies, because they have these moral prejudices implanted within their practice. So they can never look at the human condition in its entirety, because we're revolted by these evil feelings, even though these terrible feelings is what makes us human. And at the very end of that chapter, Nietzsche goes on to talk about that the free spirit is going to have a different relation to the truth, for example. You know what I'm saying? That I'm not like for me, that I want to be on this journey. Whatever truth I find within myself, I'm not going to try to impose on others, because what is the truth for me may be completely false to another person, and that's just how the world is. You know, and who the fuck are you to take my right anyways? I had to do what I needed to do in order to make that claim for myself, though. not for anybody else. What's good in posing good? Like he's like, what's the point in shoving good down someone's throat? Is it really good anymore? And how we have to have a different relationship with what true, what good and evil is, as I alluded to earlier, um, to get past that, to realize that these are just different shades of the same fucking thing. They're not antithetical. They're not complete polar opposites. You can intermix them with both. You need both in order to make a human being. We need to look at evil, and we need to look at the beast and the snake and the devil within us, not with revulsion, not trying to exterminate it, not try to extirpate it completely, as Christianity would try to make you do, but to embrace it and to realize that it's not evil. It's a part of us. It's a part of our instinct. It's what's made us who we are. This selfishness, this greed, this pride and greed. These are the things that have made the world, right? If it wasn't for our greed, we wouldn't be here. We wouldn't have the technological advances. We wouldn't be pursuing constant improvement, constant change. We had to be greedy. We had to want it, to viciously want it. And we had to be proudful. But these are these are things that are criminalized. And they shouldn't be so. And it is in the worst moments. That's what makes you you. Your will to life has to become an unstoppable will to power, as Nietzsche said. That all these considerations, these constructs of morality, these constructs of truth, and all these, they're all will to power. They're will to impose power. It's all a superior drive over the others. That's what it is. And to not be restricted anymore. It's very profound. It's a lot easier to read than it is to apply, because at the end of the day, we are historical figures, and we are the constructs, or we are the aftermath of what is around us, right? We are a combination of history and chance and luck and God and state and the people around us and stuff like that. There is no real I in it all. And to kind of separate yourself away from that, and to really question whenever you think, oh, that's terrible, but why is it terrible? It's very interesting. It's very interesting, and you can start seeing really the fallacy of it all. None of it makes sense. Nothing makes sense anymore when you get to this level. When you make that realization that whenever someone makes a point like, "Oh, we're doing it for freedom and justice and truth," you automatically really, are you? Are you really? You're really out for the truth? You're really out for justice? Totalitarian governments have said the same thing. That we're out here for egalitarian reasons. We're out here for the preservation of the people. We're out here to take down those bloody tyrants and the bourgeois that are taking all the money away from us and all the power and all our vitality. Anybody can make these excuses. And when you realize that, you realize how bullshit they are. And people don't want to admit that, because they think that they're just lying. It's just like, but what is true? What is truth? What is good? It's a lot. It's very difficult right now to be able to really, I'm starting to see for what it is, and I'm starting to be more revolted, because everyone's just a materialist now. I was just having this conversation yesterday, and it's astounding how people don't see it. How people don't see how stupid we live, really, and how these banners of truth and justice continuously get thrown in our faces, and we always get fucked over. Because any idiot can say these things, and people believe them because they have to believe them. They had to believe that these concepts are true in order for it all to make sense. That's why Christianity took off the way it did, right? It's a rejection of the realities of this world. It's a rejection of hierarchy. It's a rejection of nobility. It's a rejection of aristocracy. It appeases the weak will. It appeases those who have given up hope. That's why it took off, and that's why it's still dominant today. You have these quote unquote free thinkers, but they're not really free thinkers because they're just going with the wave of democracy that has taken hold, right? It's a rejection of nature. And then one can make the argument that our entire progress of civilization is to get away from nature. But have we really? Have we really? Have we really gotten away from our nature? And all we've done is put a mask on our face in order to confuse everybody else, in order to lie to people. But our human instincts have not gone away. We continue to chase the same things. We continue to chase power, status, and influence. And no matter what moral valuations you want to use, no matter what era in history you want to go to, we chase these things. Good and evil hasn't done anybody any good. And that's why I believe that Dostoevsky is incorrect. He's bullshit. The whole thing in Brothers Karamazov is that if God is dead, then everything is permitted. He's entirely incorrect. It is with the existence of God that everything is permitted. More people have died in the name of God than for anything else ever. This need to exert force disguises truth. You have to commit the most anti-moral actions in order to be the standard of morality, right? In order to be the standard of truth and love and happiness and inclusion. You have to be absolutely exclusive. You have to tyrannize. You have to murder. You have to slander, and you have to lie. You need both. Both are intermeshed. They are not opposites. They're together. And that's what we have to come to realize. And when we realize that you really do reach a level of freedom. Freedom of mind, freedom of prejudice, freedom to be able to understand things for what they really are. Not to look at from a moral lens, not to look at it like, this is good, this is bad. You could say this is good, this is bad, but you still have to make that distinction within your mind that this is your prejudice, that this is good according to no one else but you. Not good in terms of everybody, but you. You just try to exert it upon others, and if other people don't agree with you, then they're terrible human beings. Does that sound like an absolute truth to you? No. Because then everybody else would have seen it, right? We're all the same thing. Everybody else would have seen it if it was that, but it's not. I'm really glad that I started reading Nietzsche again, and I really want to get tatted here, will to power, just like written down. That's what it's all about. It's all about exerting power. It's all exerting domination. That's all of history. And to victors go the spoils. It's up to victors to write it the way they see fit in order to vindicate or justify their actions. But that's all it is. It's justification. And when you really pose this manner to people, people call you pessimist. Because people don't like to see the truth. And that's one of the crucial things that I like about Nietzsche, is that he calls it out. Like, people want truth, but they can't handle it. And he says that the true strength of a man is how much truth they can handle, or how much fallacy and lies and sugar coating shit that they need in order to exist in the truth. Like how much they need to sugarcoat it and lie about it in order to live. That's the true strength of a person. But truth and ramifications in a negative sense coincide quite often. You know, we constantly pursue truth, but do you really? You know, most people can't handle the truth. Most of us can't. And I would never deign to say that I can. You know, who am I? Um, it's dangerous. It really is dangerous. Because you are going to literally have to destroy yourself in order to get to the other side as a free will, free spirit. Because as the more reflection you perform upon yourself, the more you begin to realize how attached you are to this ideology beyond what you care to admit. But you will have to admit it in order to progress. And you are going to have to die in order to be alive again, in order to resurrect yourself. And, you know, it's a pun to the Christians, in order to be a superior being. If they eliminate these convictions and not hold on to these truths. That's what something else that Nietzsche really talked about, is not to die as a martyr for your truth, because you're never going to find it. It's a constant journey. There is no absolute truth. Therefore, you are never going to reach your journey. And if you start battling other people in order to validate your truth, then you are just like them. You have now constricted yourself. You have now restricted yourself to defending this idea that you currently have, and you are no longer able to grow. You are no longer able to branch out. You are no longer able to continue to experiment. Therefore, you lose rationality. You lose the you therefore lose the truth of it all, which is that it's all relative. And if it's all relative, it's always constantly progressing. And to be restricted to these things makes you dogmatic, and you don't want to be dogmatic, you know? It's the last thing you want to do as a free spirit. It's constantly wandering, constantly changing, constantly adapting, which is nature, which is true nature. The old being consumed by the new. And if you want to take it that to your own sense, is that to constantly scrutinize your convictions. You know, make these new convictions, because you need convictions in order to live in this world. You need beliefs, but to never be tied to them, never to love them, never to hold on to them for dear life. To be able to cast them aside when you find something more reasonable or something more beneficial to you, because it's all about relativism, really. So. I don't know how this guy came up with this shit, to be honest. And it's beautiful. It's really beautiful. I think we need him now more than ever, because we're still chasing this one truth. And we're still chasing it to our complete detriment, really. So, we'll see. Give me a second. But yeah. Aside from that, I will leave it at that, because it's already 28 minutes and I don't want to bore you guys to death. I'll probably make another video talking about truth itself, and but it's very interesting in realizing that how superfluous everything is. Right? It's dangerous to think that way. It really is. You are really going to attack the very foundations of civilization. But it really is all about power. The way you look at Christianity, the way you look at every ideology, how it tries to impose its own version of truth onto others and call it justice, and call it, oh, this is for the betterment of everybody, but everybody was coerced into believing this. So, if that doesn't make you suspicious, I don't know what the fuck will. I really don't. I don't. So, hopefully I get to read some more, but honestly, there's a lot to take in right now. Well, that'll be all for today. I hope you all have a great day. Hope you all make amazing gains. Gotta wait a couple more days before I hit the gym, but I like these rest days. I really start to enjoy them, and all my numbers are continuously progressing, so that's definitely a plus. So, well, I love you all. Peace.